Hello, my friends. Chris Cooking Nashville here. It is a beautiful sunny Tuesday, which is really nice. It's been pretty cold, and which is fine, but it's been a little gray and rainy, so I'm glad that we are back to some sunshine and blue skies. I need a little bit of that vitamin D, and I need a little bit of the sunshine and blue sky in my life. So it is a new year. We're a couple of days into it, and things are good. So my weight is still hanging in the same general range. It actually went up a pound or two and then kind of fluctuated back down. I'm not worried about that at all. That's totally normal. And quite honestly, with the holidays, I had some things that had a bit more dairy in them because I did some more recipes with, Christmas and all that kind of stuff with family and those kinds of things. And I was tending to eat multiple meals a day, lunch and then dinner, and kind of got into the habit of that. And I find that sometimes when I start doing that, it's almost like I eat a little bit more during the day, and then I don't eat quite as much at dinner because I'm not as hungry. And then that kind of fuels this cycle of being hungry earlier in the day and then not eating as much at dinner. So I very intentionally fasted during lunch a couple of days, and then would go home and very intentionally wait until dinner. So I was super hungry for dinner, and then I just slammed a whole bunch of like steak or beef patties or eggs or, chicken, whatever it was we would be having the last few days. And that seems to have really helped. And I'm kind of back to fasting, during the day, and then eating just one very large serving of meat and eggs and butter and, all of the good carnivore things. And honestly, I feel better doing that. I feel better during the day when I do that. So, my cheat for the holidays, if you even want to call it that, was a little bit more dairy and maybe eating a couple of times a day, or, even 3 times a day instead of the once a day, which is what I do. I would say 7 to 8 out of every 10 days, I'm eating one meal. And when I do anything other than that, it's because I get home from work and I'm just, for whatever reason, I'm extremely hungry and my body is saying, feed me. And then a few hours later, we have dinner right away. And I really push it on those days, and then the next day I'm very satiated again, and I'm good. That's kind of what's going on with my food and with my weight. I just got done watching the live stream that Dr. Barry was doing with Carnivore. He was talking all about, colon issues and all this different kind of stuff, and I thought that was really interesting. I had it just on in the background playing before my lunch break. I've had significant colon and bowel issues in my past. I've struggled with IBS as long as I can remember, just sudden urgency having to go to the bathroom and terrible cramping in my abdomen, certain foods just bothering me, and it's, going from diarrhea to constipation, back and forth, and just all sorts of discomfort, all kinds of problems. And if this is TMI, I'm sorry, you can fast forward or you can click out of the video, whatever. It's just been something that I've really dealt with. And when I was in college, and when I especially was out of college and I was working full time for the first, few years after college there, in a way that I had not done ever before, I used to intentionally plan how I was going to go from one place to another, or based on the time of day, how I was going to walk across campus, or when I was going to schedule meetings, or these different kinds of things, trying to prepare for the fact that I would probably have to stop at a bathroom somewhere along the way. Sometimes no matter how much planning I would do, it wouldn't work out anyway, and I was always struggling trying to get someplace. I remember the biggest time that this really stuck out to me as being so problematic was when I was substitute teaching at a local high school up in Indiana. It was before I had moved back to Nashville. I went up to Indiana, and it's where my family, where my parents and my grandpa are, and I was there for a little while as I was starting to build my guitar teaching business, and as I was preparing to move back to Nashville. And I was substitute teaching and teaching guitar lessons and building my business. And when I was substitute teaching, I would be sitting in classrooms, and there were times I would have to ask the teacher in the classroom next to mine, will you please just keep an eye on them so I can use the restroom? And I mean, it was so stressful, and it was so uncomfortable and I struggled so bad. And quite honestly, it was embarrassing because I felt like I couldn't do my job because I was constantly having to ask somebody else to keep an eye on something, and it just was very difficult. You add that in with all of the depression, anxiety, brain fog, mental side of things, symptoms that I was experiencing, I just felt miserable. And I didn't know why. I had absolutely no idea what any of this keto, carnivore, low carb stuff was. I also know that there is a really strong connection between the gut and the brain, and I think that when this is really messed up, it makes this a lot worse too. So there's a lot of reasons why I think my brain fog and my mental just perspectives and the clarity that I did or did not have was being affected, not only because of the brain fog from the things that I was eating, and I think the oxalates and the things that were affecting my actual mood, but also I think my gut being messed up constantly, I think that was making my brain even worse. So I had a bunch of compounding issues. I really related to some of the things that Kent Carnivore was describing. Lee, I think his name is. He was describing some things like feeling certain foods that would cause gas and these sorts of problems in his abdomen and the pain and all this. You need to go watch the video because it's very interesting to watch the interview. And even if you haven't had these kinds of gut issues, it's great information for all of us. But I was relating to him talking about these foods causing gas and causing pain. He could feel his abdomen like contracting and feeling things moving and like the pain and the discomfort of that. And I literally put in the comments as I was watching the interview, and the community was interacting there on the live comments, and I put in there like, man, I really relate to this because I remember certain things would cause me abdominal pain and gas pain. I mean, like severe gas pain in my intestines, and I could feel things moving as my stomach and my abs would contract and try to move everything through. And then there was always what I called, you can ask my wife, I always called it the final left turn, that I could feel everything in my abdomen. It would go like this, and then it would go towards my left and drop. And next thing you know, is like I'm finding a bathroom because it's moving everything through. And it was so uncomfortable, so painful. And it's like you can't focus when that's going on. You're so focused on feeling terrible and just the discomfort. It's like you can't even participate in life properly. I don't miss those days because I went carnivore. On keto, it was a little better. I would say 25 to 30% reduction of those symptoms. But I still really struggled with things, and I just thought, I just have all of these issues and I'm probably always going to. And then I went carnivore. I really started to notice things change within a couple of weeks. Now it is like once a day, small, no discomfort, not a problem. And so if something really bothers me, that's one of the first symptoms that comes back. And if you've heard me talk in my health vlogs about when I'm oxalate dumping and some of my symptoms return, and that's why I've noticed I don't think it's the food that I ate. I think it's my body burning fat. I dump oxalates, some symptoms return, and then within 3 to 5 days, I've lost a pound or 2 or 3. That's one of the symptoms that comes back. I will eat nothing different, just exactly the same as what I have always been eating, and suddenly I wake up one day and I have nowhere near as severe, but I have a few of those bowel issues and like the IBS type symptoms and the pain or the movement or the urgency, I got to go to the bathroom kind of thing. That will come back a little bit for a day or 2, sometimes 3, but that hasn't happened in a long time. It's like my body takes all those toxins and it flushes and it filters and everything, whatever, clears itself up. And then I've lost 2 or 3 pounds. And at first I thought like, well, it's just dehydration because I'm just going to the bathroom multiple times. But what's interesting about that is when that happens that way, that 2 and 3 pounds does not come back. It stays that way. It may fluctuate up like a pound the next day and then, a couple of pounds down a couple days later, and then it starts fluctuating. But that new weight loss amount, that's my new bar where I fluctuate around. And then it continues to trend downwards from there. So that's where I've sort of gotten this pattern where I feel like I'm recognizing what's going on, and that only happened when I went carnivore. It's also the way that I know if I have spices or certain herbs or different things that bother me, and I say, oh, this one doesn't inflame me, or this one does, or whatever, that's one of the first ways that I know if something is really inflaming me. So when I use spices, one of my first, it's not the only thing that I think about, but one of my first things I think about when I'm saying, does a certain spice bother me or not? One of the first ways I know that is if it has caused gut issues. And if it doesn't cause gut issues, I will continue to eat it and do further experimentation to see if there are other things that it causes issues with. And that's how I've kind of developed the way that I know what works really well in my body. It's a good experiment that I would suggest you guys do too. So it's a new year. There's some new challenges. I hope that you guys are doing good things and you're challenging yourselves to grow into the new year, and that you have goals and aspirations for your health, for the proper human diet, that you're going to be doing this stuff. I want to share one of mine with you guys because I want you to help keep me accountable. So this is the container that my iced coffee normally goes in every morning. And I got to a point where I thought, you know, I'm not trying to cut coffee out entirely, or at least it's not my first goal. I would love to do 30, 60, 90 days with no coffee and, you know, and then add it back in to see if I feel better. But I'm not like panicked about trying to get that to happen super fast. But I did notice, because of just stress and life and whatever, my coffee consumption has increased over time to where I'm drinking more than I really want to drink. So I was making iced coffee and having a very large amount of it, and I don't want to do that. It got all the way up to 10 espresso shots. We have one of those countertop automatic espresso machines that my parents were so gracious to give us, and I was doing like 10 shots a day. That's way too much coffee. So I decided that one of my goals this year is I want to bring my coffee consumption down. But I've told you guys, you have to sometimes have tools, and you have to have a plan of how you're going to do something. So here's what I'm doing. So I was doing my 10-shot espresso iced coffee drinks, right? I was also getting more dairy on a fairly regular basis, because sometimes I make it with butter and sometimes I would make it with dairy and sometimes I'd make it with both, whatever. I want to decrease that liquid dairy as well until I can get that down to 0 as well, at least for a while, and, you know, just confirm that I feel better or don't feel better or whatever. I started doing the iced coffee with, instead of 10 shots, bringing it down to 8. And I did that for a few days, and that's cool. So now, instead of doing this as iced coffee, today I did this with hot coffee, and I did 6 espresso shots. So I'm going to do that the rest of this week. It's cold right now, so drinking hot coffee works really well for me. I also drink a lot less coffee when it's hot than I do when it's cold. I love cold liquids. I always have. I drink a lot of water. And, you know, I love my electrolytes in my water, and that's just the way I've always been. My wife will tell you, she's always like, it's impressive how much liquid you can drink and how fast you can drink it. When I drink hot coffee, I drink way less. So now what I'm doing is I'm doing 6 espresso shots here, and I'm reducing the amount of cream that uses, whether I do the cream or the butter, you know, whatever. I'm reducing the amount of cream that I use when I do that, because it's a smaller portion, and I'm also trying to reduce the amount of cream that I actually use for the amount of coffee. I'm also adding in, you know, the salt and the daily minerals from Keto, Chow into that, because like I said, I love my electrolytes. So I'm doing that, and that's really, really helping. And then in this container, instead of iced coffee, now I have my Keto Chow salty electrolytes that Keto Chow has sent out. I was an Element guy, but I like the salty packs from Keto Chow better, and they have more magnesium and more potassium, which makes me feel a lot better. I was drinking like 3 packs of Element a day and still taking magnesium at night and feeling like I needed more. I don't know, it just wasn't working as well for me. I can easily get salt. I can always put salt on my food and get more sodium, but the magnesium and potassium I was struggling with. So the Keto Chow daily minerals are great, but adding in these salty packs now has made a huge difference in the way Ash and I feel. So I love Element, they're great, but we have officially switched over to salty. So I'm gonna actually put my Keto Chow link down below. If you guys want to try these things, like, you've got to go try them. They're so good. They make us feel fantastic. And if you get them through the Keto Chow website right now, my discount code will work for you. If you go to the Salty website where they have all of their new Salty brands set up, my discount code does not work there yet, but I'm talking with them. We're going to try to get that working, hopefully. Go check out the Salty, because that's what I'm doing. So now I'm bringing my electrolytes in this container of water, which gives me something to drink while I'm sitting in the patrol vehicle at work, or, you know, at home during the day, whatever it is I'm doing that particular day. I'm flushing myself with the electrolytes that make me feel good, getting lots of magnesium and potassium, and of course the sodium, but I'm reducing the amount of the coffee that I'm drinking. And so I'm going 6 hot coffee shots in this, and then I'm going to go from 6 down to 4. And then I'm going to go from 4. I have a much smaller tumbler. I'm going to go from 4 down to 2. I'm going to get myself down to 2, and then we'll kind of see where we go from there. But I'm gradually reducing this so that I don't feel like I'm just taking something away, but I'm actually making changes. So that's my goal. By the end of January, I want to be down to drinking just those 2 espresso shots in the morning, and maybe we'll even reduce it further from there. And then I'm replacing it with my Keto Chow salty electrolytes. That is a huge help for me, and that's something I would recommend you do too. If you're taking something out, be it food, activity, whatever that you think is unhealthy, also think about what are you going to replace that habit with. Dr. Saives has said this in some videos. You know, I don't always agree with all of the things that I've heard him say, but I do agree with this one because I've noticed this in my own life, from my own experience at least. When you remove something that is an addiction, it leaves an empty spot in the way you do things, in your habits, in whatever. If you don't fill that with something, you just leave this emptiness there, and it's like you've removed part of your personality or part of your activity or whatever, and you just have an empty hole. And you don't want to be empty, so it's why it's so hard to give things up, because we just don't put anything in its place. So for me, bringing along my electrolytes takes a little bit more work. It's not that big of a deal, but it helps me replace having that iced coffee that I'm sipping on for 4 hours. It turns that into something that is better for me. And so by replacing it with those electrolytes, I'm now giving myself something over here that I can reduce. And I think maybe that coffee might also play a role from time to time when I overdo it in making my gut symptoms worse. Coffee by itself doesn't seem to bother me, although that's another one of the reasons I want to do 30 or 60 or 90 days without coffee, so that I can see if that improves. I also know that coffee can be an issue sometimes, and if I eat something, or if I'm oxalate dumping, whatever it is, there's a cause of some symptoms for IBS type stuff. When I drink coffee that morning, it's like instantaneous, like, okay, it's time to go. I can tell that the coffee is having an effect in my intestinal workings. So by reducing my amount of coffee, I think I'm going to be taking more pressure off of that, which I think will let me continue to heal and get that pattern even further figured out. And I think it's just going to be a good thing in the long run, no matter what. That's what I'm working on. That's my January challenge. I may add some other stuff, but I'm also going to try to do a challenge in my health vlogs every single month this year. The first one is reducing my coffee, so a lot lower, maybe going to 0. We'll see how we do when we get there. I don't know what next month will be. I'm still thinking about it, but I'm going to come up with something. I have a number of ideas and different things I want to do this year. I'm just trying to figure out what is the most statistically likely for me to succeed method of doing this. And that's a real key. Like, you want to figure out what realistically is going to set me up for success, achieve a particular goal, and set yourself up for those successes. It makes a huge difference for me, and I really think it will for you too. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you were ready for an amazing new year. Happy World Carnivore Month. I hope everybody's having fantastic meats and enjoying carnivore, or at least enjoying those carnivore things, even if you're keto or ketovore or whatever it is you're doing. I hope you guys have some goals for the new year, and I hope you're here watching and ready to share all of your successes and to lean on the community, myself included, if you have challenges, because we are here for you, and I just want to see you guys succeed, and I want to help any way that I can. Thank you guys for watching. This is Chris Cooking Nashville. Eat your meat, achieve your goals, love your life, and I'm going to see you right here in the patrol car for more health vlogs, and I'm going to see you in my kitchen for the next recipe.